Welcome, everybody, to another interview with a digital diva. This week, we have Faith Wesson, the beautiful Faith Wesson, calling in from Joburg. If you're in Joburg today.
Yes, definitely.
What's the weather like in Joburg? Because in Cape Town, it's cack.
It is cold, but the sun is giving us a little bit of light rather than warmth. you know,
That's That's
yeah.
nuts. No, we're just cold and miserable and wet here. It's been a terrible. But you know what? It doesn't matter because we have Digital Divas coming up on August 23rd at Innovation City, of which
Yay.
you are a part of. Faith, don't you want to start by telling us where exactly you're from? What's your background?
Wow. Okay. So I'm from a little small town called Pietermaritzburg in KZN. I'm one of 7 kids, funny enough, second to last. 5
Hey.
girls, 2 boys. Yes. And my dad used to play the guitar in his youth. He was in a band, funny enough, but his dad made him quit it. That's my
Oh,
dad's story, sticking to it. So I come from a family of creatives. So for me, it's always just been a playground, being creative. I went to a public school and it's a Maritzburg, and there I've been always been a bookworm. I've always been a maverick, I suppose, a disruptor. I always wanted to tackle the difficult conversations. I spoke about abortion when it was taboo at school. Yeah.
that's what a diva does, baby.
Yes, so I always made people uncomfortable because I was introverted, but when I spoke out, everybody was just like, wow, you always hit it hard, But I love that. I think I've always just been a person who went straight, ran towards their fear as opposed to run away from everything. I wanted to experience life, the good, the bad, the ugly. I just felt that life is more richer, with all these different feelings. And I think that led me to begin mental wellness at 16 years old with other teenagers because we were all experimenting with drinking, even though it was disgusting. I was admit at that age.
Yeah,
But we all,
all of us, all of us.
yeah, I was like, why are we drinking? Because it's not that fun. But I realized that we all were just going through stuff and no one knew what it was. So to have that community where we all just sat together and spoke about our struggles was actually kind of nice. For that period, we stopped drinking and the conversations just took place of that, replaced that for a while. And then obviously, people start dating and everybody moves away. But that glimpse kind of gave me that idea. It was a beginning, for me, that of the seed that was planted then that, what, there is something here. When you have a community, you just fare well, even as a child. And from there, I just began the journey of going back into high schools when I started working with my own money, providing events, putting on events for young kids, bringing all the information to these disadvantaged schools where kids can make better informed decisions about their lives. So we've had women in tech. So it's always women empowerment, funny enough. Women in tech would come in, advocates for and then GBV kind of thing. I even taught kids during that femicide period in South Africa, self-defense classes. We did a lot of that and I continued to do it, but it was not sustainable. And I think that's how we came into building this new brand, In My Feelings, which is based on a game I built in 6 months that is all about fun, therapeutic, difficult conversations, but the fun is always there. And
we're definitely going to get into that very shortly. But I first wanted to ask you about the stigma of mental illness, because I'm a Gen Xer. I don't know what generation you are, but I have a Gen Z daughter. Who actually, it's almost like that generation doesn't really have a stigma to mental illness. In fact, they seem to be a little bit more tolerant and understanding of it. What has been your experience about, the idea of stigma behind mental illness? And obviously, I'm sure that also, it also is kind of, is it still a bit of a privilege to have sort of psychiatric aid and mental health, time for mental health and that kind of stuff? What has been your experience?
Wow, I must admit, it has been mixed, but you can see from different generations how there is more privilege, definitely, with Gen Zs, definitely. Because I think now they're more exposed and, with social media and everything, they're able to have the discussions more freely because it's more acceptable and they're more vocal. I think they're more mavericks, they want to talk about it. Whereas when we were raised by our parents, they raised us with gaps, They came from a generation where mental health wasn't actually even a thing.
Yeah.
If it's not a physical injury, yeah. If you're not bleeding physically, you're good. Yeah. Everyone's like, you know what? We went through apartheid. We went through all of this and we survived. and you just telling me you're
I'm
not feeling
impressed.
good. I say. So obviously, we came from that kind of generations where every time when you sat around family, when you complained about something in your life, people always reminded you that you were privileged in some way, that they came from war, famine, and all types of things they went through so that you could have a better life. And so you should be grateful because you didn't experience those things. So that kind of brought in a bit of shame in
Right.
our generation, where if you're complaining about feeling depressed compared to what your parents went through, it's minor, but it's not, because that's the most dangerous thing, a wound that you cannot see or heal, physically, something that's
Mm,
with you, that stays with you and continuously disrupts your whole entire life and generations after you, because we do pass on these things through our genetics when we have kids, as well as the next generations. They pay for those sins. So I think people do not understand it because no one educated anybody on it. We just knew that it existed, but it was a taboo to speak about.
yeah.
And even now, we have a lot of intelligent people, like people who leaders as well. They would say, yes, we believe in EQ, but as soon as you put everybody in the group and say, let's have a discussion, oh no, I'm not talking about my feelings. And you're like, but
Yeah.
you're rolling it out in your company.
Yeah.
What's happening? They're like, I don't trust it, because socialization and cultural context also play a role as well. Men
Yeah.
have also been conditioned to believe that they shouldn't share their feelings, and women also conditioned to believe that men who share their feelings are weaker. So now we have all these double standards and all this contradicting information that makes it hard for people to, embrace it and break the
Yeah.
stigma, because it's habit now. It's part of who we our identity and who we are. And to share that is a little bit hard, because you're saying to somebody, forget everything that you've been told and go into the unknown. And people are just creatures of habit. They rather stick to tradition, even if it's bad for them, they'll rather do it. So I think that it's very hard to break stigma, even when people intellectually, on the intellectual level, understand that
Yeah.
mental health is important. They just can't emotionally bring themselves to participate. And also, there's still that gap between the health system as well. Only 5% of the health services are dedicated to mental health. But we do know that if you go on the ground, those services are also selective. They only wait for people to be in a crisis, then admit them. But while you're
Mm.
still exhibiting the symptoms of depression, they'll wait until you try and commit suicide, because for them you
Ah,
still, so the system is
fantastic.
also, yeah, the system is uneven for a lot of people, and there's not a lot of education on the ground. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think breaking the stigma is a bit hard, but with Gen Z, there's hope that, with
Yeah.
social
But I
media,
mean,
yeah,
it's also super expensive, right? I mean, geez, like,
yeah.
I think it's gone up like by crazy amounts. Like I think a psychiatrist is almost like 2K now for half an hour. Um, yeah, no, it's like, whoa, can't you just sort of sort yourself out a little bit?
No,
So
I
much.
know. It's like
Here,
10
how about a
sessions.
lollipop?
I know, you're like 10 sessions and you haven't even
Like, come
done
on.
the problems yet.
Okay,
It's
so I
quite
mean, okay, let's talk about the in my feelings game. Okay, I mean, did you love games when you were growing up? I'm assuming it's going to be something about the fact that learning by playing is actually the best way to internalize something. But like, why a game?
because if you look back at your life, all of us, like our best memories are we're all together playing with somebody, or the family is sitting around together laughing, playing Monopoly or something like that. So those are the funnest memories that we all kind of gravitate towards. So I remember for my family, we weren't very close during the day-to-day stuff. We didn't see my dad a lot. And my mom was always busy. There was continuously like financial issues. But when we used to play games, sometimes my dad would join us. And then during that time, he will express his love. He will tease us. He will remind us that he loves us. So those moments kind of created that opportunity to bond emotionally. So for me, it was like every time I see people relax, they play either 30 seconds. I'm like, it makes sense. That's the
Yeah,
most time you relax and having fun. It's just
so
automatic.
true,
Yeah.
so
So for me,
true.
yeah. So that for me was definitely the reason I did a game. Yeah.
So okay, so tell us about this game. I'm very, very curious about the in my feelings game.
Yeah, no, it's so ambitious. Funny enough, the title came from when I always think about it, I'm like, every time people are mad and expressing themselves, they're always in their feelings, and that's it. It's their own its own perspective they're sharing. It's not necessarily the truth or the complete truth. It's how they feel. So it's always good to like almost kind of tell people, these are my feelings. This is how I feel, and you don't need to invalidate it. So I thought that was a nice, straight to the point kind of title. It's in my feelings. You don't have to accept or agree with it, but just know that these are my feelings. So I began that game because I did a lot of mentoring of young people, and I realized that a lot of the issues that we had was mental health issues, but no one knew how to tackle those.
Mm.
I thought I need something fun because your young people are very hard to crack. You can't have
Yeah.
serious conversations with them. So I was like, we need something very fun, relaxed, and it was just informal, but you could still collect the data that you needed and still educate kids. And what is the best way to do that? Game. So I was like, how do you create a fun, serious game at the same time? Because it had to be serious.
Yeah.
And then because I have a psychology background as well and communications, thank goodness. So I decided to go in and do a game that embodied dancing, karaoke, poetry, and stuff, and then just throw in a whole lot of psychology, neuroscience, behavioral science into the whole thing embedded. And then just make it day to day conversations that you can have with people, learning about your own patterns and triggers, also understanding other people's feelings at the same time, and growing and learning where your gaps are, and then taking that step to help yourself. So I'm also a life coach, which helps because I can help people map it out at the end as well. So I created this fun game where you just simply choose a card, and one card can be like a conversation for a week. It opens different doors. You don't actually need to play the full game. And we do self-development, relationship building blocks, because no one knows how to build a relationship out here. I figured that out a long time ago. So we're going back to the basics and also how to repair relationships. One of the issues that I encountered in my journey is that we all know how to have a conflict, but we don't know how the aftermath, how to repair relationships and what it
Mm.
takes, because it's not a simple sorry. There's a lot of feelings that are still in there they need to work through. So we designed just a deck that takes you through that journey and helps remind you that relationships need, like a garden, need to be tended. And you need to work at them in order for them to be successful. So we take people through different games where you learn coping tools, you learn about yourself and other people. And yeah, you get to live your best life. So that was
That-
the whole point of the game. But
I
fun is, yeah.
You said fun is the essential the essential.
Yes, you must have fun. That's what life is about. Yeah.
At Digital Divas, you're going to do a workshop for us. You're presenting a workshop called Growth Glow Up Woman on a Mission. Now, how does that work, this gaming concept that you just described, to a room of 200 women? Does it well, or do you have a plan? What's the plan?
Oh, yes, I do have a plan. I've hosted 600 people before. So yeah,
Nice.
so no. Yeah, so no, I do have a plan. What I wanted to do was really, I think one of the journeys, being a woman is a very hard thing, and I don't think we talk about it a lot. And it's not just because of the whole gender inequality, but in the way that society has set it up for us. We have challenges, whether it's a career, whether it's a relationship, there's always these challenges, but no one ever takes a moment to actually take a step back and think to himself, wow, I've been a warrior and I've been fighting, I've been doing this. I'm never living, I'm constantly fighting as a woman just to have a voice. And I wanted to really bring that back. I wanted to really focus that in the session and also remind women that, you're still an individual, you're still a fun person. You can be feminine and be a badass. You can be hard, you can be everything. You're a
Yeah.
multi-layered kind of person. So yeah, so I have definitely some very fun, exciting stuff in store for women. And I just want to celebrate that journey that, we do
And
work hard and we
we
need
can
to.
great. Going to be so much fun. What advice, if somebody asked you just straight away, but Faith, I need some help, like I'm struggling with my mental wellness, what would you say would be the first thing that you would suggest to someone who would be struggling like right now?
Well, one thing I would ask them to do is just sit down and be brutally honest about themselves as they observe their life. What is the struggle? Have a conversation with themselves first. What are they struggling about? Because I think that most people are too scared to actually tap into the feelings and go into that place and sit in the storm for a little bit. And then only when you understand what the issue is it another person, or is it you feeling like you're being held back? What is it? And once you identify the root of the issue, then I can say, you know what? Let's unpack it. Okay. It looks like it's something that you can manage yourself. Let's unpack it through conversation. If it's too hard for you to do it by yourself, then I do recommend that you see a psychologist or a counselor first. If it's too expensive to go psychologist, then
Yeah.
see somebody, because not all of us are built the same. You know, some people have the mental resilience to do it on their own, and other people just need a bit of support.
I
In
mean,
terms,
I'm totally 100%. I agree with you. You know, it is really about being honest with yourself, and sometimes that might be the hardest thing to do. But you know, you got to do the work. It's not easy, right? People think, oh, no, it's gonna be fixed real quick, but actually, it's sometimes the hardest thing to do. What would you say is the main cause of mental illness in women in South Africa that you've come across?
oh, I think it's just like I said, it's hard to be a woman, and society oppresses you from birth. You're really labeled, and people
Mm,
have kind of planned out, mapped out your life, that you as a woman have to behave a certain way, do certain stuff, and people punish you when you try and have to be ambitious. You know, as you can see, if you go to Twitter and everything, as soon as a woman is like, I can be independent, I can do everything, people just really drag you through the mud, you know. And South Africa, it almost feels like it's a man's country where women have to be submissive and people are demanding it, you know. And so when you show up differently, people already label you as difficult. Even family, everybody tries to kind of box you in,
yeah,
confines you in a certain box. And I think then you feel detached from yourself, and then that build that resentment as a woman, because you know that so much more to you, but people won't let you in the spaces. And it's hard to have that conflict where at home no one wants you to be yourself. At work, no one wants you to be yourself. Where do
yeah.
you be? Where can you be yourself? And I think that's the most hardest thing for most women, is that they're finding that they can't live life as themselves truly, because they're being oppressed by people around them and society as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, wise words. What is like? What would you say would be a great takeaway that the digital divas are gonna leave with after your workshop at the summit?
That the best thing you can ever do for yourself in life is to be you. It
Mm,
doesn't matter that it's going to be a hard thing and people are going to make it difficult, but at the end of your life, when you're on that deathbed, you will not care about anybody's opinion. But the most important thing for you would be, how well did I live my life? Did I truly live up to my potential? And I want people to understand that people's opinions don't pay your bills. They do nothing for you. They
right.
literally just words.
True.
And you've got to be brave. Be brave to be you and experience your true potential as a woman. And whatever that looks like, it's going to be badass. It's going to be fun. Just enjoy the journey. And there is support. There are women out there like you. Just find your tribe, and you don't have to worry about what other people think. I think that's the takeaway I hope they will get from me. Because I'm me authentically. When you meet me, I'm just like this. I am a walking contradiction.
You're like a breath of fresh air. I love it. I love it. So much energy, and that's what the Digital Divas is all about, really. Very much looking forward to it. Faith, where can people find you, get involved, support your initiatives?
Okay, so people can find me directly on my website, www.inmyfeelingsgame.com, or on social media, LinkedIn mostly, which is under my profile, Faith Wesson, or the In My Feelings Game. So yeah, so I'm going to be in Cape Town for 2 events, the Divas as well as the Teen Dance-a-thon. We're going to have a DJ the next week, so it's going to be pumping. So I'm
So cool.
everywhere,
Oh, I
definitely.
love dance-a-thons.
Yeah, you should come through. You should pull up through. We're actually having it at Deloitte. So you should, if you want to come through, pull up. It's gonna be fun. It's a different experience, because I'm trying to teach people that mental illness is not all hard, but it's a fun experience to just bond with the people you love. So that is the whole takeaway on that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, you heard it here, everybody. We're going to be getting into our feelings
Hey.
on August 23rd at the Digital Divas Summit. If you haven't bought your ticket yet, you better buy it now, because tickets are running out real fast. Only 3 weeks to go till there are going to be a gaggle of women in one room at Innovation City, and are having an entire day full of amazing people like Faith Wesson. Faith, thanks very much for joining us on the interview.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the event.